playing the blues harp and played with on TV. He was like 10 or 11 years old playing with Buddy Guy or anyway. So but then then you get older, they're like TV stars, child TV stars. So you can lose your luster, I think, because I think part of the phenomenon is that you're so young. It's like, how are you doing it? And once you're not, it's like, well, we've seen this before. So it's a tough thing to navigate. But when you talk about bands getting big, like the Manic Street Preachers are a band in Britain that were huge, absolutely huge, and could never make it over here. And I would buy their records and go, I don't really hear anything. That's why. That's why they're not big. I'm really not sure why. I mean, it's fine. It was good. It was a solid B minus. But it was not fulfilling for me. So, but there are bands from over here. One of them came up from Kansas City and ended up being huge in Norway, the Rainmakers.
Right. Yes.
So it's a weird thing. I know there's a band that I'm familiar with all the guys called Shiner. They would go to Japan and draw 3 times the crowds they would here. And and especially now when you can hear music, I think a lot of times it was just people over there would show up because an American band's here. They got to be good, and we're going to go watch it, even though we don't know the music. There was that dynamic, but now they can hear it before. And I think over here, it's just like there's so much here. We've heard everything. It has to be something really. It has to target the younger people. It has to splash. It has to do something you can't really predict, like Chappelle Roan. Roan. It's hard to explain. I mean, he is only 30, so
right.
I mean, I wouldn't have said that 30 years ago, but
right.
He's but yeah, I mean, you just never know. It sounds like he's probably going to make a decent living out of it.
Right. And as I said, he's in Brussels and, has 5 dates in London. So, and his new album's called A Modern Day Distraction. If you like he's kind of returning to what he did in his first album a little bit. And if he's a fine guitar player and an interesting singer with a very interesting voice. And just to this point, so I mentioned Sleeve Notes. And so the lead article in the 2 weeks ago's Sleeve Notes was a long profile of a person named Paul Heaton, who it says now is filling arenas again. And I'm like, okay, who is he? I'll recognize the name of the band, and I start reading it, and the first paragraph says, the singer is 62 and looks remarkably unchanged from his days with his great bands, the House Martins and Beautiful South, who apparently sold out arenas then, and maybe, I don't know which derivation he's playing with now, but are doing it again, or maybe he's doing it himself. I've never heard of either one of those bands.
I did.
There you go.
The first House Martins album is, I loved it. It's like the cover is like this like dark lime green and black. It looks like something out of the 60s. A friend, when we listened to it for the first time, described it as it's like listening to the Smiths, but on 45, and you're playing a 33. Okay. It's very up-tempo. It's super energetic and innovated. There's a song they do called Happy Hour, and it's political. It's kind of exhausting to listen to. Right. I didn't buy their follow-up. And then they broke up, and the Beautiful South was the follow-up. That didn't appeal to me as much. To me, they sounded like they had one really great idea. Right. And they exhausted it on the first record, but I love that first record.
Well, that's cool.
It's very British. It's up tempo, yeah.
That's very cool that you know that, because I was just looking at it right now, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll bring that up. That's another idea of it, because I've never heard of this man nor these bands, and now they're selling.
They developed a pretty. They got known among people who got zines and read Rolling Stone and Trouser Press and all that. They got a name over here, but it wasn't enough to
sustain a career.
Coming over here and trying to tour America.
Till now, looks like he's doing just fine, having a few pints and speaking at with the Guardian on Sleeve Notes. And I'll continue with that a little bit coming up next and do a few other more unique and offbeat type of notes. When we return, it's Danny and Tim's Music Scene as part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Enjoy all the excitement of football season at the 23rd Street Brewery. From the Jayhawks and college football to the NFL and even live-streamed Lawrence High and Free State football games, you can watch it all at the 23rd Street Brewery. Enjoy the games with your favorite menu item like the Bill Self Mac and Cheese, Naked Nachos, or the Haney Turkey Stack. And wash it all down with your favorite beer like a Wave the Wheat or Crimson Fog. 23rd Street Brewery on the corner of Clinton Parkway and Cassold in Lawrence.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with Dr. Brad Woodle from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City, the latest in Raytown. Pick out the one that's most convenient for you and pick it out this fall. If you've got a young athlete who needs a little bit of treatment or tender, loving care, injuries can happen, little strains can happen, and Dr. Woodle, you can help them out.
We take care of athletes both in prevention and in those injuries. Things happen. But the most exciting thing is we can take care of almost anything that deals with bones, muscles, joints. Whether it's a sprain, strain, or a concussion, we can take care of that athlete.
That you can at all the locations around Kansas City, and you can get that treatment, your own treatment, all the treatments you want to make you feel better, body, mind, and spirit at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back, and we've mentioned artists that we like and that we continue to like and will always like, and certainly an artist in that category is Paul Simon, and I mentioned that he had been featured in the latest edition of Sleeve Notes with a lengthy interview and profile, which really is fascinating. The documentary In Restless Dreams is going out in theaters in England. The Guardian obviously is a British publication. That's the reason behind this lengthy profile again. He's starting to perform a little bit, says he's optimistic about potentially being able to do full shows. He can't play with a band because he can't hear them, but he can play acoustically by himself, and recently did 5 or 6 songs. I know I have not seen the documentary in full. You have, and liked it very much. And it's just great that he still seems inspired to want to contribute to the music scene in some form.
That film, I mean, I was a little bit blindsided by how astute and coherent, and he's always been so thoughtful. Like, he answers questions in paragraphs, and either he's been ready for them or he's thinking on the fly, and he just the way he expresses himself. He's so smart. I think he's really humble. I think he rubs some people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why, and I don't care because he doesn't, me. So get over it. But that was this was like him sort of announcing, I'm kind of on the way out, wherever out is. I'm not saying he's going to die, but just because this hearing thing sucks, there's some discussions and conversations he has with Wynton Marsalis, who's become a really good friend. Who was a sort of a mentor and a guide through this very ambitious project he was doing. I'm just like, it might have been my wife or someone was like, what are you going to do when he dies? It's like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to feel it like I did Tom Petty, because Paul Simon's in my life like every day. I listen to something, or like he's omnipresent. He's like the Beatles. I mean, I'm not saying I want any of the remaining Beatles to die, because that's going to hurt, but it's like this is just part of me. And talking about someone who evolves and changes and takes a dodge one way and the other from one record to the next, he does it so masterfully. I just think if I were to compare him to an athlete, he would be like Ted Williams, like could hit for everything and was a good defensive player. He was just so good at what he did. He was prolific too. So
rub some people the wrong way. Ted Williams rubbed some people the wrong way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
it's
that's
jealousy,
great.
I don't
It's
know.
a wonder. If you're a Paul Simon fan, it's an absolutely wonderful read. And what was really fascinating as well about the documentary is the fact that his ear problem occurred during the filming of the documentary, and he just kind of let it be included in the process of making the documentary.
It's very candid, and there's some really nice warm moments with his wife, Edie Raquel, like where he's just talking about trying to accommodate this new thing. And yeah, it's very warm. I don't know. It was really nice and reassuring, because when we started watching, my wife like, oh my God, he's so old. I'm like, he's in his 80s. Come on, like, but listen to him. He still sings well. He still plays guitar masterfully, and he's still, unlike some people we hear a lot, he's still coherent and is speaking in long sentences and using the right words and all that. So
yes, very nice, very nice. Well, I can highly recommend, without having seen it yet, as I mentioned in the intro, the documentary Ennio the Maestro, which features Ennio Morricone, and I could have mispronounced either one of those, certainly. He passed away in 2021. 2020. This documentary is from 2021, and he did the film score for upwards of 400 films and movies and TV shows and everything else. He probably was first known, and maybe still best known, for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, that particular song. And he was the person who scored all the spaghetti westerns and went on to do many, many, many westerns, but worked with everybody in the world, from Paul Anka to the Pet Shop Boys. And he apparently my wife is demanding I watch this documentary, because apparently he loves music so deeply, and he did the film score for Cinema Paradiso, which is one of my wife's favorite movies ever. And just somebody who was part of probably far more of our lifetimes than we even realize.
Oh, sure. And I, just thinking about him, and I want to watch that. What platform was that on?
I'm not even. Oh, it was shown on. It was on Turner Classic Movies. So, but I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll find it. Yeah. I'll just use the Google.
It's called Ennio the Maestro.
But he, you don't realize that at the time when you're watching those movies and you hear that music, how it altered how we watched those movies. It wasn't typical Western loping, country music or whatever it was. It added this urgency and this flair and something to it that was like, it so embellished the whole viewing experience. Like, it was genius. It was like, I don't know, who decided he was the guy to do it, but man, every movie that his music's in is elemental to the film, and just absolute genius. And he is he's God to a lot of people who composers and anyone in music.
Right, and he worked with Quentin Tarantino for 5 or 6 films. So just go to his Wikipedia page, and you'll just be blown away by all the things he's done. So that documentary is called Ennio the Maestro, Ennio, and it's about Ennio Morricone. I think the last syllable is pronounced that way, but. Anyway, of course, that's part of the viewing process that my wife and I go through often, and sometimes probably, and maybe in this very night when she finished up watching this, it was time for me to come down after watching a ball game or whatever, and maybe we were going to watch a little YouTube, and she says, hands me the remote, it's all yours. So I just flipped it on, and sometimes things that are associated with whatever you watched the time before is up there, and so I saw the song "Amy" by Pure Prairie League. It said "Amy Live." I said, "Well, that's interesting. I'll watch that." And so I turned it on, and of course, it's by Pure Prairie League, and we're watching it, and it's from 1978. And the singer is a typically long-haired guy with a beard who kind of looks like a Bee Gee or whatever, like everybody, like many people look then, like me. That's what I looked like too. And about halfway through the song, my wife says, "That's Vince Gill." And I'm like, no. He wasn't in Pure Prairie League. There's no. He wasn't. And so she looks it up, and darned if he wasn't. He wasn't in it originally, and he isn't the original singer of the song. That's Craig Fuller, who wrote the song, but he did a beautiful job. I thought it was Craig Fuller because it sounded just like him. And it was just another example of a varied and lengthy and great career that Vince Gill has had, most recently with the Eagles, and everybody likes him, and he's a great guitar player. I mean, he's had quite a career, and that chapter of it I was unaware of.
He's kind of like, in a way, this is not a real accurate comparison, but who was the guy